Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, we ask that you kindly turn off all cell phones and electronic devices or place them on silent. Thank you.
We begin with the poetic words of Psalm 121. Esayenai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Oseh shamayim va'aretz, al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha, hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha, Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorecha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor et tzedekcha, uvoecha me'ata v'yad olam. The poet wrote, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. We pray that God will not let our foot give way, our protector will not slumber. For the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is our guardian, our protection at our right hand. We pray the sun does not strike by day nor the moon by night. We pray that we are guarded from all harm, guarding our souls going and coming, now and forever. Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit our loved ones gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time as long as we remember. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of Lou Smith's light and his warmth will always be shared, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time we pray, healing and peace. In words, biblical words memorialized by a rock band of the 60s, La Kol Zman Chefetz Tachat HaShamayim, a season is set for everything. There's a time for every experience under heaven. The time of mourning, of course, is a complicated one, filled with so many emotions and memories. Historically, Jews have sought comfort from our biblical poems, those poems we call Psalms. We continue now with Psalm 23. Feel free to join me in the recitation of the English if you would like to do so. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. You restoreth my soul. You guideth me in straight paths for your name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. When Moses came to the conclusion of his life, he stated, mysteries belong only to God. There are limitations to knowledge and comprehension, problems that we simply are not meant to solve. In the face of such mysteries, our ancestors were able to recite, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God you have given, God you have taken. Perhaps we strive to, when we say to place faith in God, perhaps it's truly a faith in the ultimate meaning of life. We have the ability to relate the way a person's life has affected our own. For as Moses assured us, revealed things belong to us as well as our children. And so we hear first from Lou's children. We hear from the three of them, Sarah Lee, Larry, and Susie, as they remember.
Lou didn't like to drink, but we're going to have a drink anyway.
It goes without saying that while not everyone really gives a whole lot, that a lot of people show up for his funeral. My dad did, we will note, on a holiday weekend. So we know, this isn't news. Dad's last meals were fried lobster and a large chocolate and mango Rita's water ice. The final Phillies game he watched was an 8-5 win over the Cubs, where even then, under his 100% high-flow oxygen mask in ICU, his dad was rattling off stories and stats about games from decades ago. His mind was as sharp as ever. Not so sharp was Phillies pitcher Aaron Nola, who loaded the bases in the bottom of the fifth. As Dad commented, Nola always had that one bad inning he just can't get out of. Anyone watching knew the pitcher was done for the night, but it seemed to me that this elite athlete's mindset was such that he wanted to go a few more innings. As Dad, too, was finding out, in the end, the body doesn't do what the brain so deeply desires. I felt pretty lucky to watch the Phillies sweep the Cubs by Dad's side this past week. Sports was our love language, a lifelong conversation we and my son almost immediately from birth. And so many of you shared with him, but none more than my mom, our mom. You see, when 9-year-old Carol was dragged by her parents to visit Little Butch, a nickname he hated, at their friend Smitty and Esther's house, she arrived with baseball cards. Mom had Dad's number from the start.
Dad's co-pilot in his story was our mom, Carol Smith, the one and only love of his life. In fact, just 12 days ago, Lou and Carol celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. Mom and Dad knew each other since nursery school in Burlington, New Jersey. They were just one of 3 Jews in their grade school. Lou employed a classic move. He pulled her pigtails in Hebrew school. That's how all the little Jewish boys get the attention of the girls. In high school, Dad asked Mom to the junior prom. She accepted that invitation, as well as his proposal a few years later. To be clear, their parents had different opinions on Lou and Carol's union. When Mom asked her would-be mother-in-law whether she should marry her son, Bubby, aka Esther, warned Mom, "It will never work. You have nothing in common, and he's never going to change." Mom's mom, Liz Fagan, had a more practical orientation, much like my dad. Marry him, she declared. Lou's a hard worker. He will make a good living, and you won't have to worry. Mom said yes. Well, Dad proved his own mom wrong. Over the years, Dad not only had season tickets to the Eagles, but he also had season tickets to the Philadelphia Orchestra, where he occasionally snored, admittedly, and disturbed the people around him. He and Mom shared an intellectual connection, attending lectures and talking politics, and they went to countless art museums across many continents, especially in Paris, my dad's favorite city. Not exactly an early technology adapter. Even he learned to use a Kindle so he could sit on a bench outside the Louvre while Mom spent countless hours looking at the art. Catching up on sports. Thanks, Lar.
That's what the Kindle was for, by the way.
Dad's guiding light was not unlike his own dad's, Smitty or Morris, a Russian immigrant who arrived on the shores of Philadelphia at the age of 4 with his family. They both wanted to create a better life for their children, and they each did just that. My dad had a job ever since he was 13. You hear that, kids? He worked the stockroom and cashier at his dad's pharmacy through his high school years and college. He worked through law school while raising young children. He worked to provide for us so we didn't have to worry about every little purchase like his dad did. And in all of those years and long hours opened the door for each of us to choose our own paths. For me, to be able to follow my heart and passion and be a do-gooder, as he liked to say. For Larry, to embrace his creative spirit and pursue his love of writing and storytelling. And for Sarah Lee to work in the public sector without being straddled with debt for years after law school. I learned from my dad that being a nice guy goes a very long way, both personally and professionally. I learned Lou's rules of humor. If you think the joke's funny, well, then it's funny. I learned how to be unwaveringly loyal, and I learned no matter what, you should never miss a good meal. So he'd be very upset that this is during noon hour, but he'll forgive us. But perhaps above all, I have inherited from my dad and grandfather this long lineage of working hard at whatever you do. From Pup-Up's drugstore in Maple Shade, to personal injury law in Burlington, and now to the halls of San Francisco's City Hall progressive government, the Smith line takes pride in putting our all into everything we do.
As you all know, my dad loved practicing law, and it was my dad's love of his career that inspired me to become a lawyer. If he enjoyed the law as much as he did, it must be a pretty good profession. But I followed in his footsteps in many ways. We shared many idiosyncrasies. We are both super organized. We both balance our checkbooks to the penny and not online. We are admittedly both tightly wound. We both worry about the people we love, but in a good way. On his deathbed, Dad quizzed me on where all of the important folders were and who to contact for what. Because of our likeness, we had a special bond. A bond that made it so easy to take care of him these last 2 hard years. It is also why I decided to live across the street from my parents. I wanted Mom and Dad to be a part of my children's daily lives. And that they were. We went apple picking. We went to plays together in New York. We did barbecues together. We celebrated every birthday and every holiday together. For 15 years, Dad even went to Martha's Vineyard. This is a guy who hated the sand. But let's be clear, he wouldn't have done it if it didn't have an air conditioner. The man knew his limits, but he was limitless in what he would do for us.
Dad was not what you would call a patient man. It was not a pretty picture when we were out for dinner and the veal parm did not arrive in a timely manner. He often did sweat the small stuff, and yet when the stakes were high, his daughter's having panic attacks every day of the first month away in college, his son's fiancée is, say, going to federal prison. His son-in-law just collapsed at his grandson's college graduation. The lawyer at heart would ask clear and methodical questions so he could gather information, analyze it, and immediately come up with a way to support you. Lou got shit done. But it seems to me that Dad never wanted to be that swaggering pater familialis type, you know? He wasn't that kind of man to give lofty proclamations about how you should live your life. He was, however, generous and garrulous with his highly practical and immediately implementable life lessons. I call these Lou's abiding truths, and they are pure Lou and pure gold. You may want to get a pencil and paper for this. At an all-you-can-eat buffet, don't fill up on bread and salad. Never frequent an auto shop that's offering a deal on brakes. Velcro is a miraculous invention that should always be kept handy. When seriously sitting down with a woman, and later he added a man, check out her mom or dad because that's a window into your future, kids. And this would not be Lou Smith's funeral if we didn't note that he was not the most politically correct guy. That we went easy with that one. No matter how busy you are, be home for family dinner. And I have to tell you, it wasn't until I started asking my friends in high school, what do you mean your dad doesn't work Saturday, that I understood the work week was actually 5 days. When in a new city and looking for a bagel shop or doctor, find a phone book and call someone with a Jewish last name. I actually did this when I moved to San Francisco. It was pre-internet, and it totally worked. House of Bagels in the Sunset District. And just as a quick sidebar, because I couldn't figure out how to work this in, you know, Dad wasn't very technological, but there's a box in his room that is the original Yelp. So this is one of probably 100 cards, color-coded, sorted by large regions, alphabetically, hotels and restaurants. And when he goes to a restaurant, he brings a card. So say you're going to Café des Artistes in the Upper West Side. The appetizers got an A+, the bread an A-, the iced tea an A+, did not know that. The Wiener Schnitzel an A-, steak frites an A, the snapper, didn't know he liked snapper, an A-, the Caesar and the lettuce wedge got a B, and the crab salad got a C-.
Don't get the crab salad next time.
Service was a B+, jacket not required, would probably be okay for the family. I kid you not. Lou Smith was the original Yelp. And among his other abiding truths, which you've heard already, always be kind, always be firm, but never be a bullshitter. Dad, and the thing I think that I've carried with me forever, do one thing well. Dad did a lot of things well, and one of the, I guess, nice things about a death is that you just learn even things we didn't know. You hear these different things. And I think really what he did best was one thing. He was a relationship builder.
Everybody loved Lou. He could talk to anyone with ease, and he would make anyone around him feel comfortable. From the person who came to cut his hair at the house during the pandemic, to his clients who just came out of an automobile accident and were suffering, to each and every nurse who took care of him during these last difficult days. He made friends with every one of them. He joked with every one of them. Everybody loved Lou. And let's not forget, he even made friends with the host at Chef Vola's in Atlantic City. As Dad says, it never hurts to know the name of the host at your favorite restaurant.
And in the last days and hours of his life, a life he loved and led with few regrets and not a single bicycle ride. He was very much himself. He told Mom not to worry because the kids and Brad would take care of her. He told me to remember to transfer the title of the car and not to forget the pants he requested for the funeral. In a surprise to no one at his bedside, he told one of his nurses she was the prettiest nurse he'd had in his many hospital visits.
He had cards for that too.
And as the hospital staff wheeled him from his ICU bed to his hospice room, he said, "I hope we're going to the Four Seasons." After he got his heart diagnosis and life expectancy of 4 months to 2 years,
It's not me, at least.
he told us when he did die to please don't say he was a fighter till the end. The truth is, he was and he wasn't. He fought for one more game, one more water ice, one more I love you to his childhood sweetheart. I know where I am. And then a guy who seemed to want to live forever, the master of compromise, accepted the deal. He accepted it because he got the one thing he wanted most after 82 incredible years of life: to be surrounded by his entire family in an air-conditioned room. Dad may have been pulled from the mound before we wanted, but if there's a higher power keeping score, we can assure you Lewis A. Smith got the win.
As they are taking their seats, we call up first Dave, his son-in-law, followed by his grandson, Noah.
I'm here to talk about Lou as the lawyer. Lou is the office manager. Lou as my partner, my friend, my mentor. You could not ask for better of any of those categories of a person to lead you. Lou would often tell stories of his days at Temple being in a fraternity, playing cards, never studying, but always playing cards and doing this and that and getting into trouble, it sounded like mostly. But that is the way he approached the law. He would go into bar association meetings and just schmooze with people. It was just the most incredible thing you could see. People would come up to him, they'd talk to him. He would talk to young lawyers, people in his same age group, people a little bit older, and he would remember the things that they told him. Like, you know, he would talk to 20 people a night, and he would remember the conversations about them, about what they said. He would never remember what he said to them, which probably was something offensive, but he would really just, people just kind of gravitated toward him. He was just a great, great guy. And in the office, he was kind of like the nice guy. Like, Lou wouldn't do that. Lou was not going to do this. And that was epitomized by, when I started, there was one employee who no one really knew what she did. And so she worked directly for Lou. And what happened was he kind of found something for her to do, and that something lasted 8 more years while I was there. And that was just, it would break his heart. And people would say to him, look, she's kind of like disruptive. It's disruptive to the workplace, but in his heart, he had to keep her on. And that was the heart of gold that he had, that people saw. And that kind of personality led people to refer cases to him, to the point where he was, and this is my partners talking about this, you know, when I didn't know what was going on before I started, that he really was an engine, just working, and built that practice up to a point where it was one of the most popular practices in Burlington County as far as personal injury is concerned. And the people who were his adversaries were his biggest supporters. It was crazy. It was like, oh, he's an insurance company lawyer. Well, why are you talking to him like that? And he was just like, that's how you get things done. We have Judge Baldwin here, who was his adversary for a long time, and now is like one best friend, right? I mean, that's how he was, and it was just his constant, just force of nature that people saw in him that just drew them to like him. It was crazy, but and believe me, that's not something I learned from him. It's totally the opposite the way I practice, but but in his defense, he thought I had a rock in my head. So it's like, but he, I'm telling you, was just the nicest guy, and his things were organization, efficiency, neatness. He was a computer before computers were in the office. He had a diary system that was incredible, he would just, something didn't happen on a certain day, take a sticky note, put it to the next day. And you talk about Velcro. Velcro and sticky notes were 2 Lou Smith survival tactics. It's just that if I don't know if they didn't exist, he would be able to practice as well as he did. But he was, I miss him. I think he's passed on a great legacy in our office. And one quick story I have to tell about Lou Smith and me starting in the office. When I started, he called me in. Called me into his office and says, "Dave, I'm going on vacation, and I have a really important thing for you to do." And I said, "Oh, this is my chance. He's going to give me some legal research. I'm going to establish new law." And he comes in, and I come in, and he gives me a list. These are places I'm going to be while I'm on vacation. I need you to buy the Daily News, which is a newspaper, for all of you who don't know what that is. I need you to get the sports section of the Inquirer, and I need you to gather all of the days up until this certain date and then ship them to this address via Federal Express. It has to get there by 10 a.m. because we're checking out. And then the next day, you have to gather up these other things and send them to this future address. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is so efficient. He is really teaching me. He's teaching me timeliness. He's teaching me organization. He's teaching me how to be productive. Wow, what a great guy. I'm like, I'm going to save this firm. And But, you know, he had these things that would kind of drive you crazy, but they were so Lou Smith that you just loved it. You loved doing it, and that's just the way it was. And he was forever just someone who probably will never be able to be replaced because of these different things. And we love him. And thank you all. On behalf of the family, this is an incredible show of how much he was loved. And thank you for coming.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. As my dad said, I'm speaking sort of on behalf of the grandchildren. One memory that I keep on coming back to, thinking about Pop-Up, is when we were leaving Game 5 of the 2008 World Series. For those of you who are well-versed in Phillies history, this is when the Phillies won the World Series. We're leaving Citizens Bank Park, and people are high-fiving and cheering, and we're passing through the gates, and an usher points to me and says, "You are one lucky kid." He was right, not just because I got to see the Phillies win the World Series, which was cool, but also because I had Lou Smith as a grandfather. Rachel, Zach, and I grew up across the street from Pop-Up, as my mom mentioned. Every Monday, for as long as I can remember, we would walk across the street and have dinner with them. Those Monday dinners were a special time. It probably started just as a way for my parents to get a break from us, but it evolved into this sacred quality time that we got to get to know our grandparents and love our grandparents. We learned Texas Hold'em, far too young. We talked about Philadelphia sports prospects. He told us jokes and some of his life lessons. We had good food and we had good conversation. My siblings and I will always be thankful for that time that we had with him. You may not think of Lou Smith as an adventurer, may not mesh with him, your vision of him, but he was an adventurer for his grandchildren. He went to Eagles games where I learned profanity is unsuited for 7-year-olds. We went to Atlantic City and shopping at the outlets. And of course, the big trips that he took my siblings and I on. For me, it was eating Gouda cheese and trampsing around Paris looking for bakeries. For Zach, it was just traveling to new baseball stadiums and meeting legendary Phillies players like Cole Hamels and Jason Worth. For Rach, it was traveling down the eastern seaboard, driving down the eastern seaboard, and eating at each state along the way. We're all thankful for those memories and for those adventures. It's time that I got to spend with my grandfather, and memories that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. As a grandfather, Pop-Up always made you feel loved. He said it when you said goodbye for dinner or hanging up the phone, but he also said it in 1,000 other ways. Be careful. Look both ways before you cross the street. Call us when you get home. All of his worries were manifestations of that love. He went to baseball games and tennis matches, soccer games and karate tournaments, stuff that he didn't even understand the rules of, just to be there for us, to support us. He was always interested in our lives, asking questions about sports and school and anything else going on. He exuded love in everything that he did as a grandparent. Love and laughter will always be the defining memories of Lou Smith for me. The love that he gave to every one of his grandchildren and the laughter that he brought to our lives. We were all lucky to have him as a grandfather. He'll be loved, missed, and cherished.
As Noah is taking a seat, I invite Brad Mannon, who is a cousin who really grew up with the immediate family, followed by a dear friend, Jill Friedman.
Hi, my name is Brad, and some of you may not know me, but I've been a member of the Smith family for about 46 years. I'm affectionately known as Cuz, short for cousin, and that label does not do justice with how I feel about this family. I've been a part of this clan, the dinners, the graduations, the weddings, and yes, the funerals. Lou welcomed me into his household when I was a young boy and I needed it most. He was a father figure and he was an advisor. He checked out my girlfriends and gave his unsolicited advice. He bailed me out of several legal indiscretions, and unfortunately, I mean literally bailed me out of legal indiscretions. He enhanced my knowledge of sports so that I could sound intelligent when I'm with my friends. When I first began practicing medicine in Philadelphia, I was really overwhelmed. I was scattered and unfocused. And after one dinner, Lou came up to me and said, "Brad, come with me." And he took me to his corner of the family room. We all know it well. The lazy boy chair with the grease stain underneath his head. And he said, "Brad, I've got the answer for your predicament. Velcro," he said. Now, don't laugh, Brad, but Velcro will set you free. And then he lied back in the chair and, showed me how the Velcro, the eyeglasses, the phone, the pen, everything was just right there. No need to ever get up out of your chair. And I took that to heart. And to this day, when I'm at work and my partners see my yellow stickies all over my desk and how I flip out if anybody is to touch a yellow sticky, and I photograph the yellow stickies and tape them down, I think of Lou. When I think of Lou, I smile at how unmodern, unpretentious, and inappropriate he was. No race, religion, sexual orientation escaped his funny quips. He was not politically correct, but boy, was he a breath of fresh air. When you think it, say it. When you feel it, think it. In retrospect, he may have been one of the most progressive people I know. When I was 13 years old, and this part's going to be a little rough. When I was 13 years old and lived on the street just down from their house, and I lived on Goffey Road in Morristown, New Jersey, one day I was walking home from Morristown Middle School, and as I approached my house, and I saw the police there again, I thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. And I kept walking. And I passed the Friedmans, and I walked up to the bird sanctuary and came upon Maple Avenue. And surreptitiously, Larry was stuck in a willow tree on the side yard. Go figure. And these people who were my cousins came out and grabbed me and said, "You've got to save him. You've got to save him." So, of course, I climbed the tree and I saved him. Now, I'm a Jew. I don't know how far up the tree I traveled, but maybe that's very small. It looked big. And that was it. A simple rescue mission led to dinner and movie nights and vacations and a honeymoon trip around the world with my wife, Beth. And most importantly, it led to a family. and gave me 3 more siblings, Sarah, Larry, and Suze. So I stand before you, and I was wondering, how do you memorialize somebody who saved your life? How do you do that? When I got my death talk, yes, at the end of Lou's illness, we all got a death talk. You know how organized he is. So he told me he loved me and thought of me as a son. He also told me how proud he was of my wife and my kids, Emily and Ethan. And he also mentioned to please make sure that his children stay united and love and support each other. So in essence, he asked for me, he asked me to do for him what he had done for me. And that's what I'm going to do.
So he said he walked past the Friedmans. If he had stopped in at our house, we'd have an in-house doctor now. Okay. So did you hear the one about the barmaid who tripped on a banana peel and her skirt? Oh, wait, Lou, I'll tell you that one later. I'm Jill Friedman Rickman, the oldest sister on the Friedman side of the Friedman-Smith family. My sisters and our husbands are all heartbroken with me, and I'm speaking for all of them. There ought to be a word for our relationship with the Smiths. We're not Smith siblings. We're not Brad Mannon. But for my sisters, Amy and Nancy and me, this is about as close as it gets. Our dad was Lou's law partner. Our mom has been Carol's cherished friend for more than 50 years. We were neighbors in Willingboro and Moorestown. We grew up with the Smiths and have, for all of our lives, shared secrets and a certain sensibility. Our spouses might call it irreverent or disgusting or scatological or at least shockingly vulgar, and they would be right. So we've been up close and personal with Lou forever. The Smith kids got it right in their beautiful tribute in the paper or somewhere, I read it. Lou knew who he was. Lou never aspired to argue complex issues of habeas corpus in the Supreme Court, and honestly, neither did I. He loved his career of helping regular people who had gotten hurt, a career that enabled him to build a beautiful life for his family and to be exceptionally generous to the people he loved. And through it, he got to work for decades with his son-in-law, Dave, who is one of this family's greatest treasures. He, as others have said, he would not have chosen probably to schlep into Philadelphia for literary events at the Free Library or One Day University, but he did tag along because Carol wanted to, and usually there was some kind of dessert involved. You wouldn't find Lou marching at political protests, and he might well routinely tell jokes offensive to at least 3 of your identities, after which he would ask you quizzically, "You have identities?" But when it came down to it, he accepted and loved and supported all of us, whatever the twists and turns in our lives. He was a consummate husband, father, surrogate father, and grandfather. Lou and Sarah Lee always vibed on being 2 responsible peas in a pod. That's a club I kind of consider myself part of, too. And in these last few years, as Sarah Lee said, that these years have brought them even closer than ever. Lou told me many times that he could not imagine life without you, Sarah Lee, and that he didn't have words. to express his gratitude for your stepping in to take care of everything. Larry, what could be a more natural fit for Lou than your various adventures, starting with Burning Man, your book about celebrating the wonders of cannabis, copies available in the lobby after this. But as it turned out, Lou treasured your shared Philly sports fanaticism, marveled at your creativity, even if he found it totally baffling, and loved the laughs and so much more with you and Lucas. And Susie, everybody's sunshine. Lou was so proud of your work to make life better for people on the wrong end of the stick. Like all of us, he loved your bodacious humor. We all got a taste of it 1 week ago in Ship Bottom when I got to see Lou walking around and you got onto the topic of female genitalia. Your dad delighted in visiting you and your house full of boys and men and having you visit back home. As you may know, Lou was not the sticky, sentimental type, at least not until the last year or so. But suffice it to say that the role Lou and Carol have played in the life of the Mannon family is one of the most meaningful and magical parts of Lou's legacy. And I know that Brad has appreciated every minute of it and has reciprocated amply, and that he feels this loss as profoundly as any in his life. My sisters and I wish that our parents could be here to speak for themselves. They have dementia, and they can't. And this moment makes us unspeakably sad for that loss. But if they were here, our mom would have written a lyrical essay, starting with the moment that Lou admired her legs in front of Sidney Bookbinder's office in Burlington. And then she would have revealed at least 5 Smith family secrets. And she would have found poetic words to express the profound sadness we feel for Carol, missing Lou after 60 years of marriage and a lifetime of loving him. And our dad would say that he loved the years of building something with Lou, a partnership that capitalized on both their unique skill sets. Vic was the elder statesman and the courtroom presence, and Lou did all the work. With his spotless desk, his meticulous yellow pads, which was his own case management system, with tiny, clear handwriting and cross-referencing tabs on the vertical and the horizontal axes of the legal pad, and his hideous wall art. Our dad, who doesn't throw his trust around lightly, would have told you that Lou was his best friend ever in his life, and that he loved shooting the shit with Lou, whether over dinner when they could sneak away from their wives and catch up, or whether they found a quiet corner at a raucous Friedman Smith Christmas gathering. This was a life well lived, a family well cared for. Lou, you were a second dad to us, and we will miss you so much. We will cry our way through it together.
There's a Talmudic legend, Kol hamorid demaot al adam kasher. This Jewish tradition teaches that all the tears shed over the passing of an adam kasher are incredibly precious, so much so that the Talmud imagines God counting each and every single one before storing them in a divine treasure house. The phrase is an Adam Kasher, not an Adam Chashuv, an important person. God doesn't count those tears. Not an Adam Gadol, a great person. But it is only an Adam Kasher's tears that get noted, counted, and stored by God according to this legend. So what? Who is this Adam Kasher? We've heard a lot about Lou, and I promise my remarks will be short. He was an Adam Chashuv. We've heard he was an important, a hard worker who built a successful reputation, an excellent lawyer who served well, creating relationships that earned him and his practice a reputation of being literally the best in Burlington County. He was that go-to guy for personal injury. We've heard also how great Lou was, an Adam Gadol, inherently kind and so well-liked. So well-liked that someone recently commented, who doesn't like Lou Smith? The remarks shared thus far leave no doubt that Lou was both important and great. I didn't have the opportunity to meet Lou during his life. I have met him only yesterday through the memories of his family. But it is clear from those memories and everything that was shared in these moments preceding my words that Lou Smith falls into that far more rare and special category of being an Adam Kasher, a person for whom God counts and collects the tears. We know this word kasher, in English, kosher. It's used most frequently in relation, perhaps appropriately enough for today, to food, as we've heard, one of Lou's pastimes. Food, that is, not the kosher part necessarily. He loved food, and you got an example of his ratings. When the word kasher, however, is applied to a person, it implies integrity, goodness, generosity, and a life marked by involvement with family, service, and community. That was Lou. The Talmudic sages must have had Lou in mind when they used the term in relation to humanity, for he truly was, as we've heard, the epitome of an Adam Kasher. He was born in late 1940, raised in that small Jewish community in Burlington, New Jersey, by Morris and Esther Smith. Him and his younger brother Ralph grew up in this community with Temple B'nai Israel at its center. It was there, as we've heard, in the nursery school, where Lou would meet Carol, and they'd begin their life together. Through those pigtails being pulled, and a corsage that I understand of gardenias that made him physically sick. Still, they stayed together and remained so devoted and committed to each other and to the life they would build together that it would be impossible to recall life without the other. Lou and Carol built a beautiful life together as they raised their 3 kids from whom you've heard, Sarah Lee, Larry, and Susie. Family was paramount to Lou, and watching them up here, even from behind, how they supported each other is a testament to the love he had for them and the love in turn that you all have for him. Work was very important to him, and Lou valued being a great attorney and being able to help those in need. But ultimately, work was the vehicle by which he supported his family. As we've heard, it allowed him to provide so many wonderful and enriching opportunities for his children and his grandchildren. It allowed them to pursue their passions. Even as he worked hard, very hard, he always put his family first, nurturing his kids, welcoming Dave and Michael fully and wholly into his family circle, and embracing his grandchildren, Zach, Noah, Rachel, Eli, Nate, and Lucas, and always extending love to them by sincerely showing interest in what they were doing and worrying about them. As you've heard, he did that very well. How fitting that you all put him first this past week. It was a celebration of Lou and Carol's 60th wedding anniversary that drew the family all together to LBI this past week. That everyone made such an effort to be there, from near and far, and in Zach's case, remote locations, serves as a testament to how much Lou valued and cared for his family, for they wanted to be there for him and their mom. Of course, no one expected the week to end in a funeral, but how fitting that you were all together for Lou's last days. You were his foundation, his raison d'etre, and you honored him by surrounding him by the people that mattered most to him. An Adam kasher. Lou lived a life of integrity and service. We don't often think of personal injury attorneys as public servants. And Lou hated that stereotype that developed around his profession. But his motivation, as you've heard, was rooted in service. People get hurt, and I can help, he'd say. And his success in work and in life stood firmly on his innate ability to put people first, to develop sincere and caring relationships with others, to build on human connection. Put simply, he cared, and he showed his own humility in recognizing that his success came both from his diligent effort, but coupled with a hearty dose of luck, of being, as he put it, in the right place at the right time. He valued being part of a team, and maybe that's why he loved sports so much. He didn't believe success rested solely on any single person's shoulders. No, he understood the importance of collaboration and knowing one's strengths and weaknesses. He was willing to share and rely on others to get the best job done. Rabbi Alvin Fine wrote in the last century that death is a wound. To the living, death is a wound. Its name is grief. Its companion is loneliness. Whenever it comes, whatever its guise, even when there are no tears, death is a wound. But if a messenger were to come to us with the offer that death should be overthrown, but with the one inseparable condition that birth should also cease, if the existing generation were given the chance to live forever on the clear understanding that there would never again be a child, a youth, a first love, a tug on the pigtails, never again a new person with hopes, ideas, and achievements, could the answer be in doubt? I expect Lou had no doubt. Everything he did in life circled back to his family and the people with whom he shared his life. And one look at his family, his children who have lived well and pursued life-sustaining goals, his grandchildren who each have their own passions and interests, the future possibility of future progeny, no pressure intended. I expect Lou had no doubts. He was tired of being sick, and you gave him the loving permission to leave. He hated the beach, and you gave him the permission to leave. Now your task is to remember. That is how you honor him. Allow his legacy to endure through you, not only through the memories and stories you share, but through your deeds and the generosity of spirit you extend into this world. Rabbi Alvin Fine also taught that it is not our purpose to live forever. It is only our purpose to live. It is no added merit to live longer than someone else. It is only of merit that one's life is good. And Lou's life was inherently good. And I believe God's imagined treasure house is overflowing with the tears shed in his memory this week. Zichrona livracha, may the memory of Lou Aaron Smith, an Adam kasher, always inspire blessing and kindness. I invite everyone to rise for the traditional memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei הרחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה. קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מזהירים את נשמת לב בן מורס ואסתר, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן דהי מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח משלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the soul of Lou Aaron Smith. May his rest be in paradise. Let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. And may he always rest in peace, as we say again together, Amen. You may be seated. Interment follows this service at Crescent Memorial Park. The family will be sitting Shiva through Tuesday, this afternoon immediately after interment, and on Monday and Tuesday after 12 p.m. at Carol's home.